right, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Unit 3 test remediation. What I have up here, of course, is the most missed questions. We're going to start with the first one, which is from the open window excerpt. So, which line from the open window foreshadows the trick the niece will play? And we're looking for, of course, the foreshadowing concept. If we take a peek, at A, it says her great tragedy happened just 3 years ago, said the child. That would be since your sister's time. And she's kind of giving him a little bit of background here. And we know by the end it's her way of testing him, but um, it's not necessarily foreshadowing the trick. She's just giving some background information. Now, you might realize later in the story, like I said, that this kind of it seems to be a hint of something that she is fibbing about. But B, then you practically know nothing about my aunt is the correct answer, because knowing practically nothing about her, and we are along for the ride as readers, this is withholding information and it's foreshadowing. C, do you know sometimes on still quiet evenings like this, I almost get a creepy feeling that they will all walk in through that window. And that one shares about the situation. And then D, my aunt will be down presently. Mr. Nuttall said, a very self-possessed young lady of 15. In the meantime, you must try and put up with me. So the only one that gives actual foreshadowing of the trick is the fact that she confirms that Mr. Nuttall knows practically nothing about her aunt. Okay. The next, all right, let me switch to that. There we go. The next most missed question was 8. And 8 had a part A and part B. So if we look at it as more of like 8 and 9, some of you got, part A right and part B wrong, or vice versa. So I'm going to go over both of them just for clarification. So this was from the Cask of Amontillado, and remember, this was where Montresor was our narrator. He was seeking revenge for Fortunato, and he was bringing him into a cellar and promising him the Amontillado, which is wine. And so he was very interested in that, not knowing that he had other plans for him. And we got that background actually in the very beginning. That information was shared with the reader. Let me just backtrack to this slide here. So it says in the very beginning, Edgar Allan Poe is well known for writing short stories with a macabre or ghostly theme. In this story, the narrator Montresor believes Fortunato has spoken ill of him. Montresor has plotted revenge and lured Fortunato into his cellar with the promise of a taste of a very special type of wine called Amontillado. Fortunato is having a coughing fit at the beginning of this excerpt, and Montresor pretends to be worried about him, but he really wants revenge. So we have that information from the get-go. If we look at part A of number 8, read the sentences from the Cask of Amontillado. Then I heard the furious vibrations of the chain. The noise lasted for several minutes, during which, that I might hearken to it with the more satisfaction, I ceased my labors and sat down upon the bones. And in this case, it's asking which literary technique is used in these sentences. So our options are pacing, humor, flashback, or foreshadowing. In these sentences, we have time period. So the noise lasting for several minutes, and I actually just sit down, well, not I, but the narrator sits down and listens to the noise. It's actually satisfying him that Fortunato is struggling here. Okay, so this one is pacing. It's not humor, it's not a flashback, it's not foreshadowing anything. And then B, why does the author use this technique? Well, in this situation, you might need to go back to the text to look at I'd say what's happening, the time frame, the chronology of it. But what's happening is he's already started to build, and he has now kind of enclosed this area, and he can't see what's happening. He can only hear what's happening. And at this point, we only know that it's vibrations of the chain, okay? And it's kind of creating a mystery for the reader, because we don't understand, is he, there's only the noise of the chain. Is he dying right now, or is he giving up? There's no confirmation from this. So this one is actually building mystery is the technique, or is why the pacing technique is used. Okay. Next, let's go into question 9, also from the Cask of Amontillado. It says, read the sentences, and we're looking at how does the author create surprise in these sentences. So again, our technique, surprise. It says, I had scarcely laid the first tier of the masonry when I discovered that the intoxication of Fortunato had in a great measure worn off. The earliest indication I had of this was a low moaning cry from the depth of the recess. There was then a long and obstinate silence. Okay, so it's similar to what we just looked at, where we don't have too much information directly about Fortunato. Just learning that his intoxication had worn off and that we're hearing a cry. Okay. And so this might surprise and shock the reader because, well, we knew what was happening, that he's setting up revenge, but that he's actually burying him alive is quite shocking for most people that read this for the first time. So foreshadowing what will happen to Montressor is not accurate because foreshadowing takes place beforehand, okay? And it's not surprising. We already know that this revenge is being sought out. By revealing shocking information about his cast, nothing shocking here. We're already into the part that we understand he is bringing him in for the revenge, kind of coaxing him through that wine. Okay, so not really shocking information. By withholding information about his condition, this is where we're seeing, like I said, not a lot of information because that first tier of masonry is already covering him up. We hear the low moaning cry, and we know that he is probably coming around to the reality of things if his intoxication had worn off, right? So this is withholding information about his actual condition right now. It should surprise us seeing what's going to go on. I know at the beginning he was coughing a lot. There it seemed to be that his health wasn't in the greatest he wasn't in the greatest condition health-wise, but on top of that, after having drank some wine and had some things, I think previously to even them entering. And this is not a flashback to him drinking the wine. There's no mention of that either. Okay. So I think the most selected that wasn't the correct answer was B, a little bit about the shocking information about the cast. But again, if we go back to the text for support, exit my drawing here. This first part of the passage is just, come on, I'm a little bit worried about you, and then he's faking worried about him. You're coughing. Maybe we should go back. And he's saying, no, we need to go on. It's just a cough. It's not going to kill me. I shouldn't die of a cough. He's like, okay, well, here, drink some of this. And this is not the Amontillado yet, but he says, here, drink some wine to help you get in. And so that's where he's intoxicated. It's not shocking that he's intoxicated already because he's been given different wine to get down there. And then he says, let us proceed. Let us get into the vaults, into the Amontillado, or to get to the Amontillado. And he keeps dragging him further and further down. So we're aware of that. We're aware of the depths that he's going to. And at one point then, towards the end here, he starts to prepare. He's throwing the bones aside. He's got the mortar. He has his trowel, and he begins to wall up the entrance of the niche. I had scarcely laid the first tier, and that's where that question came up, when I discovered the intoxication had worn off. So really our best option there is going to be, where I lost my slide. There we go. Our best option, and it took my writing off, but I'll do that again. Best option is withholding information because we don't have knowledge of that once he starts building those tiers. We just hear the noise. Okay. And then our next text was dealing with The Most Dangerous Game, which we read and spent a lot of time on with class. So I have different excerpts for the next two sets of questions because they were most missed. So for 13, again, we had the part A and part B, and some of you did really well on one part, or, it just depends. So going over both of them since they are together and one depends on the other. So A, what does the interaction between the two hunters reveal about Rainsford's attitude toward General Zaroff? And so I want to go back to that to show the interaction, the information that we do have. This was the excerpt. And I highlighted some things that we learn about. This is where it's revealed to him that the game that he hunts is not the Cape buffalo, it's more dangerous. We don't have what he hunts exactly yet, but there is some insight to his behavior. If we take a look, the curious red lip smile starts to give away some things about him. The general is also making Rainsford uncomfortable. Okay, the general's studying him, appraising him narrowly. So there's some details that lead us to this, I'd say, unsettled feeling about the general. And so if we come back to our question, what does that interaction between the two hunters reveal about Rainsford's attitude toward him? Our options are A, he's envious of his wealth. That doesn't seem to be the case. He believes Zaroff is a gracious host. The beginning, yes, but he's starting to feel uneasy. He's not jealous about his hunting skills. They seem to actually be a pretty good match hunting-wise because they're very skilled and knowledgeable in the craft. B, Part B says, how does Rainsford's attitude towards Zaroff advance the plot of this passage? And so what matches up with feeling uneasy are actually these misgivings. Okay, so similar word choice here that matches up. His misgivings about Zaroff prove true when Zaroff proposes his next hunting challenge. It's not that it's about, if you selected he's envious of wealth, you might select B because it talks about wealth. Gentility, if you selected B, you might have selected that one. And the envy, it just depends on which you selected. It should have matched up. But it was interesting because most of us, I think, got the part A, but maybe went off of that word choice for part B. And then 16, sorry, not 16, slide 16, get to it. So question 14 was actually, again, a part A and part B, and there's another section from The Most Dangerous Game that we're going to look at. But this one says, what does the interaction between Rainsford and General Zaroff reveal about Rainsford's attitude towards him? So very similar question. And then we'll look at our options first before we go back to that passage. A, he is afraid of Zaroff's lack of self-control. B, he believes Zaroff's behavior is inhumane. C, he's in all of Zaroff's power. Or D, he questions Zaroff's sanity. And even without the passage, you guys might really pick up on this because the one thing we do realize is that he believes it's inhumane. That is our correct answer. But I'll go back to show us text support here. And so this is where they have the conversation when they're looking out, and he's explaining Ship Trap Island and how he traps the sailors. And it says, civilized, and you shoot down men. That sort of highlighted some of the conversation because it's about the Rainsford's attitude towards. So I highlighted some parts where he's responding and the information that he is given from General Zaroff. So again, civilized and you shoot down men was a big one. And then he confirms, oh yeah, well, I train them and I take care of them and this and that. And so Rainsford's listening, but if we come down to the second highlighted part, it says Rainsford with an effort held his tongue in check. So he's not speaking, he's just observing and listening at this point. And the general explains the game. It's a game, you see. I suggest to one of them that we go hunting. I give him a supply of food and an excellent hunting knife. I give him 3 hours start. I aim to follow armed only with a pistol of the smallest caliber and range. And if my quarry eludes me for 3 whole days, he wins the game. If I find him, he loses. Okay, my time is going to and on this recording. So I'm going to do this last question on a second recording. I apologize.